Going to be counseling James here. I am in charge of the process and he's in charge of the story. Basically what that means is that I don't know what he's going to be talking about. He doesn't know what I'm going to be doing. But I'm going to be demonstrating some skills to get him to open up and to begin to take a look at any problems he might have that he might want to deal with. And so that's what this is about. This is not scripted. This is not memorized story. It's a free exchange beginning right now. So James, I need to tell you about confidentiality. And you know you're going to be on a video here, and that video is going to be available to all kinds of people, but all over the world. But you won't appear on it, and so you can be safe about that. But I need to tell you that whatever you share here will be confidential. I won't talk about it with anyone else. But I do have to inform you that if I suspect that a child or a senior adult is being abused somehow, I'm required by law to report that. So I have to tell you that. Okay. Now, James, where would you like to be? What would you like to talk about?
Well, I think I'd like to talk about job opportunities and a possible promotion at my place of employment.
Okay, go ahead, tell me about it.
Well, as you know, I'm currently employed at a major airline as a pilot, and as part of the process in my career, the process of progression for us is to advance from the right seat, first officer position, to advance to the captain seat. And so that has been a bit of a dilemma for me.
A dilemma?
It's a decision whether I choose to do so or not. Of course, like any decision, there are pros and cons,
Right.
and some weighing that goes on when making that decision.
So you're going to want to look at the pros and the cons of the decision,
Yes.
and hopefully be able to make a decision when we're finished.
Right, and make a decision that makes sense for myself and my family.
Okay. So basically, what I'm hearing is that you have an opportunity to move from the first officer position to the captain's position.
That's correct.
Okay. So tell me more about that. Tell me about those two positions.
Well, on any airliner, there's two pilots. One is the first officer. They're second in command on the aircraft. The other is the captain. He is, of course, the captain first in command.
Uh-huh.
With that comes a commensurate increase in difference in responsibility. Captain is ultimately in charge and responsible for final decisions made on the aircraft. The first officer is in more of an advisory position and a backup position to the captain. And of course, with that position and responsibility comes income potential and certainly a difference in pay. So,
Okay. So
that's part of the decision equation as well.
So one of the things about the decision is that to agree to say yes to the opportunity would be a big increase in pay,
Yes,
and of course to say no would be just stay at the same pay.
correct.
So obviously finances is one of the values one of your values that's going to be affected by the decision.
Yes.
Okay. What other values are going to be affected by it?
Things that come with the move from first officer to captain is a change in domicile, whereas currently I do not have to. I'm currently based in this city and fly out of the city. My trips originate and terminate here. In the future, if I become a captain, I will actually have to commute to a different city to begin and end my trips. So there comes a time commitment as well. So with that extra pay comes an additional time commitment.
Okay, so basically what I might want to understand is that you would have to commute from here to the place that you would fly from in and out of as a captain.
Correct.
And so that adds a certain amount of time to every flight for you.
Right, that's unpaid time. That's just personal time.
It's unpaid time, but you do get a raise.
Sure.
Okay, but so is that a positive thing or a negative thing that they're going to take more time?
Oh, that's a negative thing because
Yeah.
that time is free time that I give up because I'm commuting now to my job as opposed
Yeah.
to driving now just to the airport to go start my trip.
So with that promotion, you would have to drive to the airport, fly to the place where you're going to fly out of.
Correct.
And so there's a How much time are we talking
It's
about?
significant, you know, I
Yeah.
mean.
That'd be what, 6 or 8 hours? Something?
Probably you could reasonably tack on 4 to 5 hours on the front and back of every trip,
Okay.
comfortably, that's about right, yeah. From what I'm currently doing to doing that, I would be giving up probably between 8 and 10 hour personal hours per trip, and I would do that 4 times a month.
Okay, so each week you would be putting in 8 to 10 hours more,
Correct.
but you would be getting more pay too.
Right.
So getting more pay is a positive thing, but putting in more time is a negative thing.
Yes, right.
What other kind of values are impacted by this?
Well, for me, the trend from going from first officer to captain, and captain is, some view it as an improvement of status.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too worried about the status at this point in my career.
So status is not a big deal for you?
It's meaningless to me, really.
Okay.
I'm not the person, I don't feel like being in charge is really not that important to me. I'd like to be in the serving role just as well. So that is not a big driving force for me.
Okay, so basically, so far we've got, it's gonna cost you more time, you're gonna get more money, and then it's, what was the last thing that we just talked about?
Time and money, and the other was status.
Oh yeah, status. Yeah, and so to you, the status is not important,
No.
and you said time is important.
Yes, time is very important to me. In fact, I'd say most of the time, my time is more valuable than additional money.
Yeah. So what would you be doing with that time? Well, I mean, what would you not be able to do with, say, if you have to put in more time?
Well, I have a lot of activities that I like to do outside of my flying job.
Sure, yeah.
And so some of that would have to, I'd have to back off on some of those activities because I'd be spending more time going to work. So,
Like what kind of activities?
well, you know, I like to enjoy sports, especially mountain biking and snowboarding and hiking, things of that nature. I also like to be active in some volunteering commitments that I currently have.
Like what? What kind of volunteer commitments?
I'd like to volunteer at the local schools, mentoring kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, something's got to give when you're tacking on an additional 5 to 8 hours a week on commuting to work that I currently don't have to do. So that really becomes a driving force in my decision process.
Okay. I'd like to put this, put some on this board here.
Sure.
And maybe get an idea to see what it's like. So let me see if I got a marker here. And so here we have two options. And basically it's a yes or a no, isn't it? Yes or no. Can you read this over there? That's not very deep. A yes and a no.
Okay.
And so one of the values is money, and then time. You value your time,
Right.
and what about impact on your family?
Other than the change in income and the fact that I'll be gone more, there really isn't it's transparent to my family what position I fly on the airplane.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just, to them I'm a pilot. Whether I'm sitting in the right seat or
Yeah.
the left seat is not really.
Yeah, but to them also, they're gonna be a beneficiary of the money and a loser of the time.
Oh, absolutely. That's why those are important to them. But beside those two things, you know, we talked about status. They don't care. My wife is not interested in saying, "Oh, my husband's an airline captain," or
Mhm.
"My husband's an airline first officer." That's not important to her.
Okay.
I was thinking of another thing that's a part of this is also quality of flying. So,
What does that mean, quality of
okay,
flight?
well, there's different, depending on the type of aircraft you're flying determines the type of flying you do. If I become a captain, I will be flying domestic routes in a narrow body aircraft, which means I'll be flying more frequently. So in order to accomplish, let's suppose, 10 hours of flying duty, I will fly 3 flights to accomplish
Okay,
10
so-
hours flying.
So that's
At-
extra landing-offs and takeoffs and landings.
Yes. Takeoffs, landings, departures, arrivals, taxiing, which is essentially all of the stress of flying occurs in those 5 segments.
Okay, so let's put stress as a value up
Okay.
here, huh? Stress. That's a value, that's
Okay.
important. And let's get back to your family. What does your wife think about this? Has she got any thing in the pot here?
Yeah, she does. And she says, I want you to do what makes you happy.
Okay, so she's okay with whatever you decide.
Correct.
Okay, then that's not an issue, is it?
Nope.
She says that, but do you have a sense of what she
No,
what she would prefer?
No, but she says that, but I also know her well, and she wouldn't say that. We're pretty honest with each other. She
Okay.
wouldn't say that. And she knows it will be an additional time commitment.
Yeah.
And she knows it will be an additional income for us. She also knows that I only have 8 years left of my career, so this doesn't last forever. It's, you know, I
Yeah.
don't, here's the other thing. I don't want to look back at my career and have regrets that I didn't do something that I wish I would have done. I don't want to, I want to accomplish everything that God has intended for me to do, and I don't want to hold back just in the interest of saving a few hours or trying not to be stressed. Because some of the most rewarding things I've done in my life have had some stress involved.
Okay, so stress isn't totally negative.
No, but I don't think it's a desirable thing either. It's not something I
Yeah.
seek, but I need to be able to deal with it.
Give me an example of another item in your life where stress was.
During my military flying career,
Uh-huh.
you know, I flew some fairly challenging aircraft in that,
Yeah.
and flying those challenging aircraft in challenging situations propelled my career to points where I had more
Okay.
recognition that enabled me to be promoted.
Okay, so when you were a Air Force officer, taking on those challenges really benefited your career in the long run.
Correct.
Yeah.
However, in the airline industry, taking on additional stress doesn't do anything for you except promote you to a possibly different seat, which is it's just a financial reward. It's just money. So essentially, you have to. For me, I have to quantify all these things, and at the end of the day, they have to bring me the value of the money. Because if you went to that board right now and put X's under yes and no's.
That's what I'm going to do. Right
Okay.
now. Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's
So money, if I did it purely for the money, I'd say.
wait a minute. Before we do that, let's
Yeah.
do this. Let's rate each one of these. Which is the most important value?
Wife.
Wife. Okay, so let's give that a 10.
Okay.
And which is the next one?
Time.
Time, and how far, let's say we can go from 0 to 10, where would time be? It could be a 9, it could be a 5, where would it be?
8.
8, okay, time, 8, all right. And what would be the next one?
Money.
Money, and what number would that be?
7.
That's a 7, and so what's the stress?
6.
That's 6, okay. Now, we'll just put a 0 in there, huh?
All right.
And now, this is worth a 10, and so what is this worth? 6, that's a minus 6, it's a minus 8, and that's a minus, and it's a plus 7, right?
Yes.
But over here, the money, really, not getting that extra money,
No,
what I understand, it's not that big a deal to you.
it's not. Money's not that important.
So maybe this is really a neutral here. Over
Okay,
here,
okay.
doesn't matter.
Right.
Doesn't matter to you that you don't get the extra money.
No, not really.
Okay. And the time, A no, the time is a positive,
Right,
and the stress is a positive, right?
right.
And what do we have for wife? Still a neutral?
Yeah, I mean, she,
She's okay with the way things are now, right?
yeah, she's fine.
And so that's what this no means.
Yeah,
No means as it is now.
right,
So that would be a 0 also.
right.
So now what do we add up to here? We got 8, 6. We have a -7, and we have a +14.
Uh-huh.
So what do you think of that?
And I think that says I should keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, but how does it feel to you to say that? Because we might be missing a value here.
Oh,
Does it feel like a good solution?
no, it's a good solution, but I wish it were so easy.
Yeah,
Because
of course.
it's more complicated than that.
Okay, what's left out of this equation up here that's more complicated?
Well, the fact that it's not a clean choice because I'm being displaced from the aircraft I'm currently on. I'm gonna have to make a change, and the change is going to include commuting.
Oh, so that's regardless. You're going to do that regardless.
I'm gonna have to commute regardless. So the $10 question then is: should I commute to a first officer position that pays a little more than what I'm currently doing, or should I commute to a captain position that pays far more than I'm currently making? Again, if I commute to the first off, regardless, the time is going to be gone. The time, whether I'm captain or first officer.
Okay, so this is not an 8 then. Here, we have the time. That's not a +8.
Well, based on the first scenario, this scenario we were talking about, there's two scenarios going here. The one that we just addressed was captain versus first officer, like essentially stay doing what I'm doing or commute to captain. Okay, that's great. And for as long as I've been doing what I'm doing here at this location, I've made the choice to stay here versus commute to a captain. But times are changing at my current domicile, and the aircraft I'm currently flying is getting retired. So I am actually going to be flying from a different domicile in about 7 months.
Okay, so the time for commuting is the same.
Same. Okay.
So this value is not affected by it.
Right, so that's not. Money, captain more, first officer less. Of course I want more. Stress, captain a little bit more, first officer a little bit less. And the wife's indifferent because I'm still going to be commuting to a job.
Okay, so this is the neutral. You're satisfied with the way it is now, the pay.
Yes. It's gonna go up either way.
Okay, and the time is no longer an issue because it's the same.
Right.
And the stress was from having to do the.
Captain versus first officer. Captain is going to have more stress because you're going to be one making.
So because you're the one responsible for everything that happens.
That is correct.
Yeah, including the performance of the first officer.
Yeah, but they don't have to do a lot with us. So.
And so which is the important one here? We gave this a -6, but maybe that's not a +6.
Really? So you're balancing money against stress. It's money. The two variables are money against stress.
Okay.
Is the money overcome and worth the additional stress?
So that's the question. What do you think? Is the money worth the additional stress?
Well, the question is, what I need to do is look at the stress could be viewed as additional challenge, because
and you like challenges.
to some degree.
Okay.
To some degree, I think a little bit of a challenge at work is healthy. Too much challenge equals lots of stress, which for me is not necessary. I don't, as much as I like money, I don't need to shorten my life by having too much stress. So, to me, it's a balancing act between stress and money. And it's a marvelous problem to have. Unfortunate that
Yeah.
I have this kind of a problem. But yeah, so I've been.
So basically what you're dealing with is to say yes, you would be taking on additional stress, but you'd also be taking on more money.
Correct. Yeah. Right.
And to say no, the money's going to be the same as it is now, which you're satisfied with,
Uh-huh.
and the stress will be pretty much the same because you're still going to have to commute.
Yeah, you're right. Commuting. Yeah, the commute's a given.
Yeah.
So now
So
it's,
the stress of being in charge, of being responsible, that's the one.
that's it.
Is that? And the question is, are you willing to do that?
That's the question. Yeah, and so that's where I'm thinking a lot about things with regard to this. Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe you haven't identified all of the stress factors that are going to be involved in this decision.
I'm trying to. Every
Yeah.
time I fly a trip
Yeah.
in the first officer position, I'm always talking to the captain about this decision and what his thoughts
Oh,
are.
okay.
Because I want to talk to people that are currently doing it to,
See if they enjoy it.
yeah, and see what their thoughts are.
Yeah. Would they do it again
on
if
my
they had?
process, because I'm in a little
Yeah.
bit different position financially than a lot of people
Yeah.
for a number of reasons. So I don't have to take on a bunch of stress
You
for
don't
money
need the
that
money.
I don't need.
You don't need the money.
I don't. I don't need it. I like it, but I don't need it. So it's an interesting dilemma, and there are no right or wrong answers, I don't think, and I think there's positives both way. I think there are positives both way, and I think that I just need to talk about it like I am with you.
Is there a deadline that you have to meet to make this decision?
Yeah, probably about 5 months.
Somebody's waiting for you to decide.
Yeah, I just put in my priorities, what I want to do, whether I want
Yeah.
to next transfer to this aircraft or and as a first officer, transfer to this aircraft, this other aircraft as a captain. It's purely my choice. It's not. I'll get either one. That is, and it's not. So let's suppose I chose to be a captain, and then after a year I go, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't have to do that the rest of my career. I can
Oh,
just,
you could drop back?
you bet. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh. So you could just try it out.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, what we've identified is that the stress is pretty much the same either way.
Mm-hmm.
Except that with the captain thing, there's an additional stress of being the guy in charge.
Yeah. Uh-huh. That's right.
And with the captain thing, there's more money.
Yes.
And let me see what else. What the other, the time is the same, because you're going to have to commute regardless of what you do.
Right.
Now, what about, you mentioned there's two different kinds of airplanes.
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked, because as the first officer in the larger aircraft, I'll be flying long international flights, long overseas flights.
And what that means is few takeoffs and landings.
Very few.
And that's what you like.
It depends. I like them, but I don't need to be doing 3 or 4 of them a day to be a happy man either.
Okay.
So-
What does that mean?
Well, and too much of anything is not much fun. I mean, in a perfect world for me, I would take off once each day and land once each day.
Okay, so that's your ideal.
That's ideal.
Okay. Which of these opportunities would meet that ideal?
The first officer position would be fewer takeoffs and landings.
Okay. So that's an advantage to stay where you're at.
Yes, or in the next aircraft.
Now, it's two different kinds of aircraft, right?
Right.
And so how do they measure up?
Well, I like to fly the bigger plane because it's a different style of flying. It's just long segments
Okay,
of flight.
so it's a bigger plane. So that's the captain's job.
No, that would be the first officer's job.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
So the captain's job would
That's
be,
right, the captain's job is bump, bump, bump,
Yes,
bump.
is the smaller, narrow
Yeah.
body, domestic type flying. Yeah. So either way, there's pros and cons. I like them both. I mean, I like them both. I'm fortunate. It's not like I dislike any of them. And the nice thing is, I can try one. I can try it and see how I like it. And if I don't like it, I can do something else. Even in the first officer job, I could try this for 6 months. If I don't like it, I can upgrade to captain 6 months later.
So it sounds like that's what you'd like to do.
Yeah,
Try it out.
yeah, I think so.
What you gonna try first? To try staying in the first officer with the new commuting thing, or
I think that's what I'm gonna start with, is transition to the larger aircraft first officer. Meanwhile, my seniority will be progressing, then 6 months to a year later, transition to the captain position. I think, right now, that's what I say.
okay? I don't know much about this, but does having more rank, so to speak,
Seniority, yeah.
does that give you opportunity for a different kind of airplane?
Sure,
Oh, okay.
it's all based on seniority,
Okay. So the more senior you are, as a captain, you might have an opportunity to do the long flights.
many years from now, yes.
Okay, so that's not,
Uh,
and you don't have many years
Well,
left.
I don't, yeah, so,
So,
yeah. So I'll probably never be senior enough in this company before I retire to be a wide-body captain, which is fine, so.
okay, so what it boils down to, James, is to decide whether or not you want to give it a try. Because since it's not a total commitment for the rest of your life, you can try it out, and if you don't like it, you can go back to what you were doing.
Yes.
So that's the opportunity. Then that's the decision. Do you want to try it out or not? It's not deciding whether you want to spend the rest of your 8 years doing it. It's do you want to try it is what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I think I will try it. I think I'll try it.
Okay, so is that a decision?
Yes.
Okay, so what are you going to do to how do you activate that choice? What's the next step?
Well, I just have to make sure I have my priorities straight in the database at the company, so that when they press the button and run the computer program, it sees what my priorities are and what I choose to do. So I think I'll make sure my displacement bid is properly arranged and be ready for a move in about 7 months.
But how do you let them know that you want to try it out, your captaincy?
Oh, by just putting it in the computer.
Oh, okay.
I don't
So
talk to anybody.
when are you going to do that?
It's actually already in there. I've just been thinking about whether I want to make an adjustment to how I have it.
Okay.
recorded, yeah.
So basically, you already decided
It's
that.
all automated.
And this confirms it.
Yeah, and like I said, I can have my decision right now
Yeah.
completely out of order,
Okay.
but it's not going to be run or looked at for about 6 months. So that's why I'm just
Okay.
running through some ideas right
So
now.
James, what we've done here is that you've talked about the issue of having to decide whether or not to take this promotion to captain, and we've taken a look at the values that are affected by that, and what it boils down to is that since it's not a permanent commitment, it's worth a try.
Right.
Is what you're saying.
Sure.
Okay. So, where do you want to go from here? I think we're probably finished.
I think
Huh?
we're done. Yeah.